Big announcement at AEW Dynamite concerning maybe a super show. Someone got duped by a fake account and some leaked news on Cody. All this and more on Just Another Effing Podcast. Hit the music. Coming to you live from the effing Worldwide Media Studios, located in parts unknown, it's Just Another Effing Podcast. Good morning, good afternoon, and if we don't see you until later, good evening, and happy Easter Sunday to those who celebrate Easter. It is the JFB, James from Boston, one half of the greatest tag team podcast. Greatest. We're the four-time podcast champions of all time. So I am the JFB, James from Boston.
He's the JFB. I was on two podcasts yesterday and I had to do this. So let's do it one more time, baby. I'm the patron saint of professional wrestling. I'm that gingered up, bubbly son of a bitch. I'm Canada Dry, damn it.
Oh, yeah, he is Canada Dry. Guys, welcome to season 2, episode 16 of Just Another Effing Podcast.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Joseph Graham, happy Easter. Yeah. Happy Easter. Christ has risen.
Christ has risen from the dead, damn it.
He is risen from the dead. Even Vince McMahon couldn't write such a good angle.
And we did Raising from the Dead on the Paranormal podcast. And we talked about all the people that miraculously came back to life.
It's insane. It's insane. There's a great movie that's called Serpent in the Rainbow, which talks about voodoo and hoodoo and bringing people from the dead with this medicine. And the movie kind of takes liberty. The book is actually written a firsthand account of this pharmaceutical doctor who went to Haiti to study this. And they kind of made a movie about it. But if you ever get a chance, read the book, Serpent in the Rainbow. Great book about these people that were supposedly dead that were seen walking in town like years later. So it's a creepy book. Yeah, don't read it.
That's almost like zombie-ish, right?
Yeah, it's very they very much talk about the zombie effect. So anyways, we got a packed show. Episode 16, of course. The last week's show was so huge. Hollywood it was so big we had to split it into two parts. So this is Wrestling's Greatest Families Part 2. But before we can even get into that, that's the main course, the main event, the auditory orgasm. We have to, of course, go through our dark matches. And, of course, our first dark match is always the news.
The news!
All right, Jonathan Gresham is now not medically cleared to wrestle for Ring of Honor. Of course, he got injured during the Battle of the Belts. So we wish a speedy recovery, of course, to Jonathan Gresham. Great champion. Great champion.
Do you know what amazes me when these wrestlers, they get hurt in the matches? You don't even know they're hurt.
No.
It's amazing how they pull that off. They finish the match.
I mean, think about it. Kurt Angle wrestled professionally for WWE WrestleMania 19 against Brock Lesnar with a neck that was held together with basically duct tape and spit. and on a 5-star match.
Do you think he would still go back and do that now? Like, if you could redo it, would you still do it?
Oh, he would do it because he's that kind of guy. He likes to be a competitor. He
Yeah, I
likes
always
to.
think of stuff like that. I'm like, how many years do you take off your life by doing stuff like that?
Oh yeah, he's taken off. Yeah, he's lost about 20 years off his lifespan. Sammy Guevara, congratulations, is now a 3-time TNT champion. Actually, Joseph Graham, I got 2 questions about the same topic. What do you think of TK's message will be, and what do you want it to be? We're going to get into that. That's in the news, my friend. We're going to answer that question. Casey Catanzaro, former Miss American Ninja Warrior, will now be known as Katana Chase. A lot of this comes from some news that broke earlier this week about Vince being very sour on using names that either you used on the indies or your real name. So that's the reason why we've been seeing a lot of name changes lately. He doesn't want to use indie wrestling names that you've used in the past. He doesn't want you using your real name. So,
and then he's stuck with Gable Stevenson because he's that household name already.
Yeah. There are exceptions to the rule. Brock Lesnar obviously being one. Gable Stevenson, Cody Rhodes. So yeah, I've heard worse names too, Joseph. But Katana Chase, because she was on American Ninja Warrior, is classic. Unfortunately, for those who follow wrestlers on social media, there's a little check mark you can look for to assure that the person you're talking to or interacting with is a verified person. This gentleman lost all his money and his house giving money to a fake account, thinking that he was talking with Liv Morgan. Liv actually got on social media and said she felt horrible that, she would never ask a fan for money. She felt horrible about it. We both follow wrestlers,
That is just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is. It's soul crushing that this guy lost everything. Like, we should
there's gonna be like toxic people saying how stupid can a guy be, but you know what? We all get lost in the fantasy of thinking a beautiful wrestler would want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And get to know you. It's heartbreaking.
It is. It really is. And I mean, we know indie wrestlers. We've conversed with them and we talk to them all the time. And if anybody that wrestles for WWE starts asking you for money, do not send them money. So there's speaking of which, Tony Khan came out and said he's got a huge announcement this Wednesday. Rumor has it it's going to be a super show between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling in Chicago in June. Huge. I mean, I feel bad too, Joseph Graham. But yeah, the super show. What are your thoughts on this super show?
Okay, so if it's not the super show, the dirt sheets say it is. Could it be the HBO Max deal?
I think it could be. I think
one of the two.
Yeah, I think the reason why we haven't heard about the HBO deal right away is because obviously there was the acquisition with Discovery Channel. Yeah. They wanted to get that all tied up, get the stock issues out of the way. Hey, Liam, welcome. Imagine the matches. Yeah, I mean, New Japan Pro Wrestling is probably one of, if not the best promotion working today internationally. We're talking around the world.
Yeah, globally. Like I think they got it going on. So like combining AEW, the North American star power of AEW, and the international star power of that would be amazing.
Oh, that would be huge.
Will Ospreay maybe against Bryan Danielson? Like that would be amazing.
Oh God. I would love to see Okada versus Danielson. What a match that would be. And speaking of New Japan, they are going to lose a wrestler. Juice Robinson has decided to not re-sign with New Japan Pro Wrestling, has even gone further as saying is that he's just not interested in professional wrestling right now. So we might see an early retirement from Juice Robinson. Speaking of name changes, former Ring of Honor women's champion Roxy is now with WWE, and it seems like her new name is going to be Roxanne Perez. I'm digging it. I like that name.
At least it's got the sort of the similar sound that they're kind of like. At least do that. Roxanne Perez, like at least get part of that in there.
For those who are big fans of 80s managers and valets, our man Virgil is actually posted. He talked about he's suffering from dementia. He's recently had 2 strokes, so it's heartbreaking. I've met him a couple of times at signings. He's a nice guy. If you want to shake his hand,
the word heartbreaking.
Yeah.
What about this? Did you see the post that Bret Hart will be managing FTR against Brian Pillman and
Brock Anderson?
And it's going down. And could this be a teaser towards AEW?
I think this is a precursor to Bret the Hitman Hart. And
I mean, in AEW first, maybe?
Yeah. And it's weird because he, in the last 5 to 7 years, he's not done a lot of wrestling stuff. He just, he showed up, of course, to unveil the AEW championship belt, but he doesn't get involved with wrestling. So I think it's
he does a lot of those Comic-Con sort of deals where he shows up, signs some stuff, but he doesn't do a lot of like WWE or AEW or like Impact, anything. Like he's kind of just being a grandfather.
Yeah. He's a granddad. Let him bounce the grandkids on his knee and then take them down to the dungeon and put a shoot move on.
But you know what? Him showing up at AEW would be an easy thing to maybe show up once a week or maybe once every couple weeks. Like it would be easy for him.
I'd love to see Bret Hart. I miss watching him. There's only 2 guys in wrestling that have retired that I miss watching. Bret Hart's one of them. Jushin Thunder Liger is the other. It's so weird watching New Japan Pro Wrestling and seeing Jushin Thunder Liger as a commentator and not as a wrestler. It's just very odd, living in this weird world. WWE talent is said to be worried that there is going to be another upcoming mass release. I'm not going to speculate on who's going to get released. I think they're going to try to shore up their roster and try to make it.
I almost feel like the money they paid Cody, they're like, oh, how can we recoup this?
We just signed Cody to $4 million a year. You know how we're going to do it?
You're all.
I think it was $4 million. That's what I read. And congratulations to Natalia Marcova. Well, it's actually, speaking of Cody, let's get the Cody news. Yeah. So the rumor has it that Cody Rhodes is going to win Money in the Bank, and he's going to cash in on July 4th.
The American Nightmare.
I'm digging Cody in WWE right now. I was kind of apprehensive. I thought they were going to slap some polka dots on him, and
he's kind of got that Bret Hart vibe, handing the belt to kids before he comes. I think that's great.
Yeah, he's got that Bret. Yeah, when Bret did it with the glasses, was a perfect example of interacting with the fans and stuff. Friend of the show, Natalia Marcova, who we talked to, and we know she's real. She retained her HOG Women's Championship, so congratulations to her. We're hoping to have her on the show sooner than later. We miss having her and talking with her. So, and for those of you who watched the Young Rock TV show, it seems that the Young Rock TV show might have given away a possible main event at WrestleMania next year. The scene was set up with The Rock just signing with the WWE. They're watching the Royal Rumble and they're watching Yokozuna. And this little kid is wrestling with The Rock. And he goes, "Acknowledge me." And they say,
was it Elvis Martinez?
It was, yeah. And they said, yeah, it was Elvis. And so they said, well, I'm not going to wrestle you today, but maybe this is a match for WrestleMania. So the Young Rock's TV show might have leaked the main event. I can't imagine. Vince is very happy. I don't think Vince is going to be very happy with that because we all know they plot their storylines.
Well, you know what?
You
don't even need a belt for that.
Yeah.
Like if you don't need Roman to be champion, that would be epic.
Oh, yeah.
And it would cement Roman's legacy even more because they're not going to let Rock win.
No, they're not going to let Rock win. He's too busy making.
Well, you know what? Actually, good if the Rock actually got one over on him on, say, like a pay-per-view before that.
Yeah.
And then he beats the Rock because you can't just have him. That's what I don't like about WWE. They bring in someone, and you know that they're just fodder.
Yeah, they're just there to put the wrestlers over. So, it's been the same way for Vince, and the system works. Why ruin it? Roman is facing Elvis next year. It's going to be who gets the rights to say, acknowledge me. I'm going to take the odds-on favorite of Roman Reigns over Elvis, only because Roman has the Usos, and I don't see anybody from AFW stepping up the bat for Elvis. So that's a dig on Elvis.
I'm tagging Elvis right now, telling him that we are talking about him on the podcast.
All right, guys. So that is our news. Let's lighten the mood up here. It's always been down and sour for the news. Let's bring it up a notch. Let's go ahead and do our joke of the week. All right, our joke of the week is brought to you by Zach, who's gonna drop. I have a feeling this is gonna be a good one. Here's the joke of the week.
Steve Zach Kelly, and be listening with your effing joke of the week. How did the cannibal get caught during a wrestling match? He yelled food fight.
You know what? I have another joke.
Okay, go ahead. Do it. Bring it on.
Hey there, butter.
For those of you who listen to the podcast, it's a cow's udder with a Hulk Hogan mustache and bandana, and it says brother.
Let me tell you something, brother.
As always,
he's not gonna like this. He's not gonna like this.
He's not gonna like this at all. I'm sure you're gonna get a phone call during the podcast. For those who don't know or have not submitted, what the hell are you waiting for? If you have a decent joke that's clean, bring it to either Canada Dry, bring it to the JFB. We will go ahead and put it on the air. Joke of the week, send it to us, all our social media platforms. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get to the main course, if you will. The main event, of course, you gotta get and finish our part two. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your auditory orgasm, or as we like to call it, the main event.
Gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
Bruce Buffer, man, that guy can. He's got such
the
a
main event of the morning, Buffer. Come on, get it right.
So, to recap last week, to go over really quickly, our number 10 were the Rhodes. Our number 9 were the Armstrongs. The DiBiases. The Hennings were number 7. The McMahons made number 6. And our number 5 was the Ortons. So let's get into the gist of it. Let's get right into our number 4. And of course, you can't talk about wrestling families without including the Von Eriks. No family rivals the success and the demise of the amount of wrestlers in the Von Eriks. Jack Atkinson, otherwise known as Fritz Von Erich, led the charge. He was actually trained by Stu Hart, which has a connection.
Crazy that you got the Hart connection in there.
We got the Hart connection. He wrestled basically for NWA before he eventually created World Class Championship Wrestling in Dallas and created one of the most popular acts in the world. Fritz had 5 sons that became wrestlers, and we're going to go through them real quick. David, nicknamed the Yellow Rose of Texas, worked in WCCW, where he was in the title picture pretty often. He died in Tokyo from what a lot of people say was a drug overdose. Mike, while not wanting to wrestle, was forced into the business by Fritz. He did die from an overdose. Chris, Von Erich wrestled despite health issues and took his own life after Mike died. Kerry probably had the most success of the brothers. He did win the 10 pounds of gold from Ric Flair and had a decent run in WWE. Eventually, Kerry took his own life. Kevin was also a force in WCCW known as the Golden Warrior, and he is the only surviving member of the Von Erich boys.
So wait, don't we have a new Von Eriks team?
We do. I'm going to get into that. So Kevin has two sons, Ross and Marshall, who became third-generation wrestlers, and they are currently the tag team champions for MLW. And Kerry's daughter, Lacey Von Erich, actually became a wrestler before retiring in 2010. So let's talk about the Von Erichs. I know for me, my exposure to outside of WWF/WWE, originally my first input, into it was World Class Championship Wrestling at the Sportatorium in Dallas. And I know Joven he's from Dallas. He's a huge fan of World Class.
Hey, we don't say that name on this show.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. So this guy whose name sounds like Roven, he's a huge fan. I am a gigantic fan of World Class Championship Wrestling, and there was no group of people over in professional wrestling in one area than the Von Erichs. And
they sold out arenas.
Oh yeah, they sold out
for a small promotion. They did extremely well.
Absolutely,
like the crowd pop when they came out was just enormous. It seemed like a pay-per-view event where people were going nuts in Dallas.
Yeah. And the big knock on them, there's two. One of them being, of course, Fritz was he was extremely controlling. He wanted his boys to wrestle. He didn't want them to do anything else other than to perform in the ring. And I think that led to number two, which is the big tragedy with the Von Erichs. Kevin being the only one that's a surviving member of Fritz's sons, they all took their lives. A couple overdosed, and two took their own lives. Really is sad. I mean, if any family suffers from a tragedy, nobody does it like the Von Erichs.
Well, the thing I think about when I think of the Von Erichs is just think of the domino effect.
Yeah,
tragedy upon tragedy. Like one tragedy leads to another tragedy, and it's just, there needs to be some light put into that situation, and the light never came.
Yeah. And I mean, it started with David. I mean, the original plan was not Kerry to win the NWA 10 pounds of gold. It was actually David. David was groomed to be the next NWA champion. And, he went overseas to Japan. He passed away. They said it was natural causes. But the talk amongst the boys.
David, which one's David? Is he the one in the middle?
Yeah, he's the oldest. So he's the first. If you talk to the rumor mill, the rumor innuendo is he overdosed on drugs, and the Japanese never really released the true, the true report on what killed him. And once David died, it kind of just railroaded itself. Kerry. I think if Kerry stayed in World Class Championship Wrestling, he probably would not have had the issues he had, or they wouldn't have come to light. When he went to WWE, his cocaine issues, he got arrested for cocaine possession. He had massive depression and took his life.
Yeah, let's talk about K. Von Erich. The guy was he had the look, look. He looked like the Ultimate Warrior, but could actually wrestle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he had more than 3 moves. And
he had that look. And if they ever wanted to get rid of Warrior, they could have painted up Kerry Von Erich like him and made him work out a bit, and you would have easily replaced him with a superior Ultimate Warrior.
Oh yeah, he would have been Ultimate Warrior Dos, and he would have done a better job than Ultimate Warrior.
What would have been cool actually if they would have had a tag team together at that time and painted up Kerry Von Erich.
That would have been hilarious. That would have been awesome. So yeah, the Von Eriks. I mean, it's a tragedy. If you've ever watched Dark Side of the Ring, which I suggest,
Yes, he was.
Joseph Graham. He was the Texas Tornado. He actually
I should have
lost.
worn my Texas Tornado shirt today.
Yeah, he actually lost a part of his foot in a motorcycle accident and wrestled the last year or 2 years in WWE with half a foot. Which
wow, I did not know that. Holy.
Yeah. So watch Dark Side of Wrestling and then watch the episode.
So he was Intercontinental Champion in WWF.
Yeah.
No tag team, just Intercontinental.
Yeah, just IC. Yeah, I don't remember him being in a tag team at all. Maybe early on in this.
Yeah, I just remember the Intercontinental Champion and how good he was, but he didn't quite rise up more than that.
Yeah, and it's sad. I mean, a lot of it is just he had drug issues and all that stuff. So, all right, let's get to our number 3. Here we go. Okay, let's get to our number 3. We're going to talk about the Guerreros.
Wow.
When one thinks of influential families, one only has to look at the family. Gory Guerrero, of course, is the patriarch of the family and was this amazing luchador and is actually one of the pioneers of lucha libre and created the camel clutch. So Iron Sheik, if you want to give thanks, Bubba, and be humble, give thanks to Gory. Him and his wife Helinda had three kids. Also had 3 brothers that were wrestlers. Of the 6 children that they had, the 4 boys became wrestlers. Of course, there's Chavo Sr., otherwise known as Chavo Classic. He is the oldest. He wrestled in the NWA Hollywood territory where he was the heavyweight tag team champion. Mondo came on second, and he plied his trade mostly in the AWA and tagging with his brother Hector. Hector was the 3rd child, and he was infamously known as the Gobbledygooker. That's right.
That's true. That's awesome.
Yeah, he was the Gobbledygooker. It was so sad. The youngest of the 4 boys would actually have the most famous, and some would say one of the greatest of all time, and that would be Eddie Guerrero.
Cheat and steal, baby.
Yep. He broke in with CMLL in 86, AAA in 92, New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he was the Black Tiger Mask, and then New Japan Pro Wrestling, and then ECW before going to WCW. This is where he made his name before leaving for WWE, where he was a 1-time heavyweight champion, a 2-time Intercontinental champion before his death in 2005. Chavo Sr.
What did he have in WCW? He had the TV title.
TV title. I think the U.S. title and the cruiserweight title.
Yeah, he did have the cruiserweight. So he still was pretty bright star in WCW and had some great matches, even with Chris Jericho.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And then Chavo Sr. Actually had the first 3rd generation Guerrero. That was Chavo Jr., who became a 3rd generation wrestler in the family. He wrestled for WCW, WWF, TNA. Eddie and Vicky's daughter, Shaw, became the 2nd 3rd generation wrestler. She's wrestled a lot more on the indie scene than she has anywhere else. The Guerreros, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the Guerreros. Canada Dry. Who's your favorite Guerrero?
Hector? No, it's Eddie. I almost got a shirt for every one of these families today. I don't have a our next one, so but Eddie Guerrero, he really put his family's name on the map, and I don't think we'd be talking about this on the show if you don't have that main guy who makes the family stick out and makes them famous.
Yeah. I mean, I like Chavo Jr. And I've seen Chavo
underrated.
Yeah, I've seen Chavo Classic wrestle. When we were doing this, I actually went back online and found some stuff on YouTube of Gory Guerrero as a luchador, and you kind of see where they get that talent from. When you talk about famous luchadors, Blue Demon, Mil Mascaras, Mil Muertes. You hear all these names, but Gory was a great luchador.
What was the gimmick that the Chavo did where he's the white golfer? What was that?
Irwin,
but he was the white golfer. He tried to play a white guy, and he was just that gimmick died quick.
Yeah. But Eddie, man, I got on to Eddie in ECW with him and Dean Malenko. The two of them in their matches, they had a total of 5 that I remember.
Oh, right. It was Kerwin White. That's who
Kerwin White. That's it.
He had the name White in there. It's like, yeah, he's a white guy.
The matches between him and Malenko were amazing. When he got to WCW, the matches between him and Ray and him and Jericho were you can't even describe them. I suggest going on Peacock and watching, especially Halloween Havoc 96. It's Eddie versus Ray. It is probably one of the greatest non-WWE pay-per-view matches I think I've ever seen.
And you also got to remember that Chris Benoit and Eddie were best friends, and they put on some hell of matches in WCW and in WWE. New Japan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Chris Benoit being the Pegasus Kid, and Eddie wrestling mostly as Tiger Mask, Black Tiger Mask, were just some of the most amazing stuff. And when you talk about tragedies and the impact that they have on the wrestling community and on the sport itself, none is more devastating than losing Eddie when we did.
Well, we got the more tragedies. Like, I don't know if like all of these, I don't know if there's any Samoan tragedies, but all these families got tragedies in them.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one current theme in this show, is that a lot of these families have had horrible, horrible tragedies, and none more tragic than the Von Eriks. But losing Eddie changed wrestling for the better. He was not 6'10". He wasn't 300 pounds. He wasn't roided up on steroids.
Well, they say that the Benoit incident changed Eddie a bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, Eddie dying probably is what contributed Chris Benoit from going over the edge.
I thought Benoit died first.
No, Eddie died first. Eddie died, and then Benoit died 3 or 4 months afterwards.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
It affected Benoit. That's right.
Yeah. And, like I said, I mean, think of, the only death that's ever affected me more than Eddie was Piper, because I was such a huge Piper fan growing up. I've met Piper. I've had a beer with Piper. It was.
Well, we're going to get into it later. No event hurt me more than Owen.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about 3 deaths that just shattered your world, and one of them could have been prevented. And really, honestly, 2 of them, Eddie changed how wrestling was going to go forward. It started with Bret and Shawn when they were the little guys in a big pond. They were little fish in a big pond. In the world of giants, they were laying down the foundation.
When the Radicals showed up to WWE,
yeah,
that was a huge part in WWE defeating WCW.
Yeah.
When the Radicals showed up, Eddie had arrived, and he had nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of my favorite moments with Eddie is WrestleMania 20. He defended and won. He defended and retained the WWE Heavyweight Championship. Benoit beats Triple H. And it's Benoit and Eddie in the middle of the ring. These 2 guys who had been linked together, celebrating Chris Benoit's win.
I'm sorry. I had I had a Spanish friend who I worked with, and at my work, and so whenever we needed him to come to our department, I would go I'd go on the loudspeaker, and I'd go, Latino heat to the furniture department, Latino heat. And he just loved it. And,
but that
we
match,
said Mamacita a lot. It was great.
Mamacita, him in China, who he had a lot of respect for. I think he really cared for China. They were never in a relationship, but I think he cared for her very much. This was during the later part of her run in WWE before she left. And we've talked about the China. We have a China episode that's in the archives. So, but I don't think wrestling. I don't think promotions like AEW. I don't think that WWE or even New Japan Pro Wrestling would be as good or as where they are right now, or even
who will leave it out.
Who?
Excuse me.
Yes, Vicky Guerrero. Yeah, but none of that exists without Eddie.
Vicky really, she was groundbreaking for a woman like her, managing people in WWE. Edge. Who else did she manage? Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah.
But like, she was just awesome, and she really made that character stand out in WWE, and she was groundbreaking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot, and a shout out to Vince for giving her something to do while she was mourning the loss of her husband and still be able to take care of her family. So that's our number 3, the Guerreros. Let's get to our number 2, because this is probably going to take
a while.
It's going to take a while. I hope you go ahead and sit back, relax, grab a beer,
drink, and enjoy.
Get a drink, take a swig really quick. You can't talk wrestling families without talking about the Anoas.
Look how many there are of them. There's like 50.
There's a buttload of them. So this is going to get complicated, as the likelihood is if you are of Samoan descent and not Samoa Joe and you wrestle, you're from this family. I'm going to break it down. There's 2 brothers. First one was Reverend, and I'm going to butcher a lot of these names, so you'll have to excuse me. There was Amituana Anoa and Fanini Anderson, a.k.a. Peter Maivia. They were blood brothers. Now, we'll go with Peter Maivia's side of the family first. For those who keep thinking The Rock is related to this family, he actually physically, by blood and genetics, is not related to the Anoa family. Here's why. Peter Maivia actually married a woman who had a daughter named Ata. He adopted Ata, who then married wrestler Rocky Johnson. Rocky and Ata had a son, Dwayne, who became The Rock, one of the most famous.
He's in the family, but by adoption.
Huh?
He's in the family, but by adoption.
By adoption, yeah. So he's not genetically related to the Noah family, but he is by marriage. Dwayne's daughter, Simone, is actually training at the WWE Performance Center, possibly making her a 3rd-generation wrestler and an honorary member of this family, of this huge family, but not related by blood. Nia Jax is a cousin of The Rock. I don't know. I didn't get too far in depth with her in terms of her connection with the Anoa family. So on the Anoa side of the family, he had 6 children, 2 of them becoming wrestlers and 1 marrying a wrestler. So you had Afa and Liati Anoa, otherwise known as Afa and Sika, and they found fame in the WWF, of course, as the Wild Samoans. Ellerva Anoa married Falu Solofa Fatu Sr. Afa had 3 sons that wrestled. Samola Samu wrestled in WWE, and he was one half of the Headstringers. Afa Jr. had a small run in WWE, and Lloyd Anoye, known as LA Smooth, would work mostly in indie promotions. Ellerva and Solafa Fatu Sr. had 3 kids who became successful 3rd-generation wrestlers. Samuel Fatu would be known as the Tonga Kid or Tama Tonga. Samuel had a son, Jacob Fatu, a fourth-generation wrestler and former MLW World Champion, Edward Fatu, who would be known former MLW champion. Edward Fatu would be known as Umaga, and Solofa Fatu Jr. would be Rikishi. Junior would have three sons as fourth-generation wrestlers. Jonathan and Joshua would become the Usos. Sofa Fatu is wrestling in NXT as Solo Sika.
Do we have a visual family tree, or didn't get that?
I didn't get that. Yeah, the thing is huge. It's so fucking confusing. Afoa Anoa'i would have a son, Rodney Anoa'i, who would wrestle in the WWF as third-generation wrestler Yokozuna. Sika and his wife Lisa had two sons. Matthew Anoa'i would wrestle in the WWE as Rosie. Liati Joseph Anoa'i, of course, would become the unified WWE World and Universal Champion, Roman Reigns. And last but not least is Samu's son, Lance Anoa'i, who is a fourth-generation wrestler and is currently wrestling on the indie scene. Woo! All right.
Did we include the Usos and Rikishi in that?
Yeah, Rikishi, he was Edward Fatu. He was Solofa Fatu Jr., so he was Solofa Fatu Sr.'s third son.
Yeah, because he was originally called Rikishi Fatu, right?
Yeah. And then Rikishi, of course, had three sons that are fourth-generation wrestlers. So
right, you got a third Uso possibly coming in, right?
Well, you actually have, yeah. So you have the Usos, and then their brother Sifa Fatu is wrestling in NXT as Sola Sika. But then you have Jacob Fatu, who's wrestling in MLW. That is the son of Rikishi's dad. It's so complicated.
Yeah,
we'll put it in the show notes.
Joseph said that we just pretty much scratched the surface. What a huge wrestling family. You can name out some favorites there, like obviously The Rock, obviously Roman Reigns, the Usos, Rikishi, the Islanders, King Haku.
Yeah.
So many. Wow.
Well, and you can't even ignore the fact that part of the family married Tongan. And so you have Jimmy Superfly Snuka as a cousin.
Oh, he's actually related. I was going to ask.
Yeah. He's related by marriage, not by blood. He's related by marriage. But, I mean, I lived out west for a couple of years and became very good friends with people from Samoa. And we talked wrestling, but it's a very small island, and realistically, most people are related to each other.
What about the Head Shrinkers? That was such an awesome team.
Yes, Head Shrinkers. That would be Samu, who wrestled as half of the Head Shrinkers. It is a storied family, and
going to current product, calling the team the Bloodlines, it's great. You're actually making this part of the story of Roman Reigns being the head of all of this.
Yeah.
It's
nice to see Afa and Sika come out and kind of say, handing that torch over, and I mean, they outside of just being a huge family, they innovated a lot of moves. The Samoan drop being, of course, the most famous one.
Featured on Young Rock a lot.
Yeah, featured on Young Rock a lot. It's a huge family. Pretty much have been involved in the wrestling business since the 40s and 50s.
Actually, you know where I got that idea? Live the Gimmick.
Yeah.
That was an episode of Young Rock that was called Live the Gimmick. And I loved it, and it stuck in my head. I didn't realize I even stole it from Young Rock. There's so many things.
My favorite, at least on the Anoa'i side of the family, I really dug. I loved Yokozuna. I thought he was the perfect heel at the right time for Hart, for Hogan, for a lot of guys.
Yokozuna, like he played the role so well. You know, for a long time, no one even knew he wasn't Japanese. It was like, and I think that was actually brilliant of Vince McMahon to pull the wool over our eyes that way, because he looks like he could be Japanese.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it you know, and Rikishi had a great career. I mean, he was the Sultan. He was a lot of things. I mean, the more you know. Yeah. Welcome, George Penning, to Under the Learning Tree with our host, Canada Dry.
Sorry, that's not the one I wanted.
Okay. Yeah,
it does not need a title. I don't think it does. Like, just having them go against each other would be cool.
And what's scary is Roman is a family man. The Usos are married, or one of the Usos is married. You know, so there's a chance we can get 5, 6, 7.
Let's not forget about Meng, or aka the Barbarian.
Yeah, he was Tongan. He wasn't Samoan. I believe he was Tongan.
He's not related.
No.
Sorry about that, Joseph. He's not part of the family.
He's not. I don't think he is. I mean,
he's like Samoa Joe.
Yeah, he's like Samoa Joe. He's Samoan, but he's not related. He's one of the few people not related to the Onawa family. But I mean, we're talking, you can get literally 9, 10, 11 generations of the Anoyas coming into wrestling. It's scary. Oh, it's awesome. Awesome, scary. Not scary, scary. Awesome, scary. Which leaves us, of course.
When you tell people that The Rock is going to be there, people will watch the show.
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's face facts. The Rock has transcended wrestling, but he has also done more for and bringing wrestling to the forefront almost as much as Hulk Hogan. You know, as much as I'm not a Hogan fan, I understand and recognize that the reason why wrestling is global and recognized is because of Hulk Hogan. He's the one who kickstarted it globally. And then it's guys like The Rock who have gone way beyond.
I think The Rock is way more recognizable now
than
Hogan ever was.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, Hogan's not known for good stuff right now. But yeah, I mean, The Rock, I mean, he's in billion-dollar movies.
Oh, yeah.
Billion-dollar movies. If I want to just even
Hulk Hogan
send him an email,
Santa
it
with
costs me
muscles.
$1,000.
Have you seen Santa with muscles, by the way?
I have not.
I have not, but it's just like a dumb name.
All right, let's get to our number one, guys. The Rock is the head of the family. He certainly is. You know, that was a lot of people. You thought that was a lot of people. My suggestion is buckle in your seatbelts, because this next family is a doozy. We are, of course, talking about the frickin' Hart family, damn it.
It's the Dungeon.
The Dungeon. This is just the boys. I couldn't find a full family picture. But here we go. I'm gonna give this a shot. I'm gonna try to do this as fast as I can.
Well, let's just stick to the wrestlers, right?
Well, we're gonna start with Stu and Helen. They are the parents of Canadian royalty. After his wrestling start in the NWA, he set up shop in Calgary and created Stampede Wrestling, which has had some of the most amazing talent come through. In that time, like rabbits, they had 12 children, 8 boys and 4 girls. As expected, all the boys became wrestlers and all the girls married wrestlers. So here we go. Bruce Hart worked mostly in Stampede, but sporadically in WWE and WWF. Ellie married Jim Neidhart, one half of the Hart Foundation. They had Natalia, who is a third-generation wrestler for WWE. Dean wrestled part-time in Stampede. Diana married Davey Boy Smith, one half of the British Bulldog tag team, a member of the Hart Foundation. Their son, Harry Smith Jr., is a third-generation wrestler, currently wrestling everywhere.
NWA right now.
Huh?
NWA right now.
Yeah, NWA right now. Smith Hart wrestled mostly for Stampede. Keith wrestled in Stampede and a couple of matches in the WWF, WWE. Wayne spent most of his time in Stampede. Georgia married Stampede wrestler Bradley Annis. Their son, Teddy Hart, is also a third-generation wrestler, which we could do a whole show about Freaking
Teddy
Teddy
Hart.
Hart.
He's really the black sheep heart of all of them.
Yeah. Allison married wrestler Barry Bassarab. Ross wrestled mainly in Stampede. And then we go to the big two. Owen is the youngest of the Hart children. He broke in with Stampede Wrestling before becoming a star in the WWE, where he was a 2-time Intercontinental Champion, a 4-time Tag Champion, and King of the Ring of 1994. And Bret. Even before becoming a 2-time Hall of Famer in the WWE, he started his stardom in Stampede Wrestling. Afterwards, he left to go to the WWE. He was a 5-time WWF champion, a 2-time IC champion, and a 2-time tag champion. Woo! All right. Let's get that out of the way. Let's talk about the Hearts.
So, like, this is what I think. It's almost like the law of, like, it's just simple probability. You have 12 kids. 2 of them are going to be stars. Like, the odds are 2 of them are going to be stars. It's like wrestlers. We're going to make some wrestlers.
Yeah. Do you have any statisticians out there? Give us those odds because, yeah, I mean, 12 kids. And what's so funny, what's so memorable is I remember an interview.
We forgot to mention Tyson Kidd is also.
Tyson Kidd is married
into the family.
Yeah. And produced approximately 60% of WrestleMania. Wow. Because of neck injuries, he doesn't wrestle, but he produced 60% of the last WrestleMania this year. Yeah, I remember an interview with Stu and Helen, and I think it was on Wrestling with Shadows, but Helen talking about how she didn't want her boys wrestling and she didn't want her girls marrying wrestlers. And what happens is every boy became a wrestler and every girl married a wrestler.
Well, let's talk about Bret Hart. When Vince McMahon came to Stu and wanted to buy the territory, on the condition that he would take Bret and his son-in-law Anvil.
Yep, absolutely, and smart move. I mean, you know, this is when WWE was buying up territories left and right, and you know, it's funny because Bret never wanted to be a professional wrestler. He wanted to compete in the Commonwealth Games, eventually in the Olympics, and then become a gym teacher.
Well, that's Owen.
No, that was Bret too.
Well, they both.
Yeah. And you know, it's amazing how just getting into the family business made them become who they are today. You know,
it's so funny. So it's like it was like they were born, to be what they were, because
God came down and touched those 2 boys and made them 2 of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time, Owen and Bret.
It's almost like they had no other choice.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just who they were, and that's what they were. Like they were, like as you said, they didn't even want to do it.
Yeah, and they carried on the tradition. I mean, you know, you have Natalia, you have 3rd generation wrestlers, Natalia, Teddy. I mean, you know, like I said, we can do a whole show about Teddy.
Harry Smith.
Yeah, Harry Smith Jr. I mean, you have a lot of people carrying on the Hart name and the style of wrestling. You know, and it's funny because most of the kids have their own children, and you look at Bret's children and Owen's children, and neither one of them are wrestling, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing. We'll get into this now. The tragedy of Owen Hart's death.
Yeah.
You know, I just remember my heart breaking.
Yeah.
When I heard about Owen dying. I remember where I was, and I just remember just my heart breaking for Owen. And his kids wanted nothing to do with the wrestling side of the family.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that Owen Hart is getting honored in this AEW tournament.
Yeah.
Because it's a chance for his kids to reclaim that legacy that belongs to them. Yeah. You know, they don't have to be wrestlers, but you can say, my dad was one of the best wrestlers whoever stepped on the face of this planet. Damn it.
Yeah. I mean, I remember exactly where I was when Owen died. You know, I was at a friend's house in his living room drinking a beer and watching the pay-per-view, and was just utterly crushed with Jim Ross. And I mean, Jerry Lawler was in tears.
Oh, you watched the pay-per-view?
Yeah, I watched the pay-per-view.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
And it's
I was
soul
cheap
crushing.
ass and I wasn't buying them.
Yeah, I mean, it was soul crushing. It was absolutely horrendous. And like I said, I mean, you know, Piper probably hit me the most because I just my love for Piper from being a kid. But Owen probably was the one that made me the most angry because it could have been prevented.
Yeah.
And it could have been stopped.
Let's get into a little bit of positive now.
Let's get into the positive. 2-time Slammy winner.
Yeah.
And
you know, and you all touched us all.
yeah.
We can go back and watch the Ode to Owen episode. But what about Bret Hart?
Bret is going to go down as, some people will say that Bret Hart was the transition between Hogan and Stone Cold. I say that's not true. I say that he was more than just that transition between those two eras. He's the one who helped kickstart the Attitude Era. He was the one that carried that company on his back when no one else was willing to take the chance.
Also, he's the one that brought real wrestling back to the world.
Yeah.
Like, he ushered in real wrestling again instead of that showmanship crap that Hogan was, you know, posing and all that stuff. But the very fact that FTR celebrate him on every single episode of AEW Dynamite.
Yeah.
And, you know, Dax, he says, like, the idea that Bret Hart texted me makes me cry. It's just like he's being celebrated like a Babe Ruth of wrestling right now.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Well, and to me, it even goes further than that. Let's talk about matches that AEW has had that they basically have copied Bret Hart matches.
Yeah.
You know, and whether it's Tony Khan or whether it's these wrestlers coming up with this idea, it comes down to this, which is that he is one of the most well-respected wrestlers of all time. He never injured his opponents. He was honest. He was forthright. You know, and that's what made him different. He didn't play the game, and that, I think, burned him in the end. You know.
Okay, for closing on this, I just want to say this, is that Bret Hart was concerned that he would be forgotten.
Yeah.
And there's no way in hell that we would ever let that happen.
Never happened.
I'm glad that he's being honored in the way that he is. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, he deserves every single ounce that he gets. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is our main event. It is, of course, an honor and a privilege. And you know, we are inclusive, and we want our friends to have the ability to come on the show and hang out with us. And so we have a new bit, and it's a new. It's a new bit for us. He's one of our favorites. He's one of our friends. His name is Kenny. And let's go ahead and get the intro really quickly. Let's get him on. He's in the back of Effing Worldwide Studios. He's in the green room. Let's get him out, and we're gonna get you to introduce you and get to meet Kenny. Kenny, I'm sorry, man. We are out of time. We are going to have to cut it short, but we will, I promise you, Mr. Kenny Lee, we will have you on the show next week, but we just ran out of time.
Oh, sorry, Kenny.
Yeah, sorry. From the bottom of my heart, I'm so sorry. But, you know, we had the joke with Hulk Hogan. We talked about Hulk, you know, in that golden era. I know we give him our show notes beforehand, and did he have anything to say about why he wasn't included in the family with Boris Hogan and his daughter being in wrestling in TNA? What was his reaction?
Unfortunately, Hogan was still mad at me from last week. He wasn't responding to my tweets or my emails. or my texts. So unfortunately, we got a no-show from Hogan altogether, except for the udders we showed earlier in the show.
Yeah.
So that's Hulk Hogan 0, effing Wrestling 629, and that is Canada Dry out.
This has been an effing worldwide media production. You can find us on Twitter at All Effing Wrestling or at Effing Podcast. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Effing Wrestling. After that, why don't you go ahead and throw a T on your back? You can find us on the Pro Wrestling Tee store at prowrestlingtees.com/Effing Wrestling. You can find all of this at our new website, effingwrestling.com. And as always, have a great